All right, everybody. So we've been having some technical difficulties today. The Seesaw platform has like a 99.9% rating of being up and running, and because their servers have overloaded, it's completely shut down. Right now, they're working to try to resolve it. And then I was told that, and I went through myself, and a lot of the links that we put in the resources, which were um, direct copies, are not working either. We're getting a 404 message on some YouTube links, and some of the worksheet link pages are not working as well. BrainPop seems to still be working great. YouTube seems to be working when you go in and search for it. So if you were to go to these resource pages and you're looking for the BrainPop video on basic fractions, this is the error that I'm getting. Some people are not reporting this, but then if I just search up basic fractions, the search is working. So you would have to do a little bit of I'm trying to see if any of the top ones are the best ones. I know that I had linked this fraction song. They always enjoy that one. And then I know I had linked the Introduction to Fractions from Khan Academy. That's a pretty good one. You can see looking at the views tends to be a good. Looking at the visuals over here, this one says division right there. So we know that that's not the fractions we're going to want. Addition and subtraction we're not doing right now. So you do have to do some searching if that's going to be your tool for today. If I find anything out that I can link them, I'll try relinking them, but when I went to relink them, the link was the exact same. So I don't know if it's just a YouTube error or what's going on, but it's definitely making things a little bit more difficult today. So I just wanted to go on and since the videos were not working, I wanted to make sure to go over the math video with you guys, or I'm sorry, the math activity with you guys. And the suggested activity that I did was activity D. Which is reviewing our shapes from last week. And it's got a bit of an extension with our vocabulary. There's some different vocabulary terms for those of you needing a little bit of a challenge. In the additional resources, there are some links to YouTube videos that were not not loading for me, but that had some different information on him and his life, as well as the painting that we're going to study today in the Guggenheim Museum. So if you go over, one of the things that I want to share is this presentation on our artist of the day. Our artist of the day is Vasily Kandinsky, and he is very famous for his geometric shapes. Let's see if I can make this a little bit larger on here. There we go. And he was born in 1866 and he died at age 78. He was born in Moscow, Russia, and his father was a tea merchant and his mother was a homemaker. He actually wasn't going to be an artist at all. He was going to be a lawyer. And so he actually went to law school to become a lawyer. But he had this condition called synesthesia, and it's where the signals in your brain mix up your senses. So in Kandinsky, for example, he could hear sounds in colors and see sounds he heard out loud. So rather than what a normal brain does is it's listening to those sounds and it's processing it in the brain and we're hearing it as music. But in his case, his sense of sound and sight were cross-wired, and so when he would hear music, he would see these vivid shapes and colors pop up almost as if they were in real life right in front of his eyes. And I actually did a project on synesthesia when I was in a senior in high school, and it's a fascinating condition. It can be very complicated for people, though, because their senses are mixed up. But there was, for example, one woman said when she would think of the months, it would pop up that she was seeing a Ferris wheel and the months were going around on this Ferris wheel. Or one guy said when he would hear different instruments, he would feel touch. So he would feel a violin on his neck, or he would feel piano sounds on his arms, things like that. It's really a crazy condition. But for Kandinsky, as he began to get older and older, his dad recognized that this was not just a disease, but that it was a gift. And so he put him into some music lessons and some private drawing lessons, and that's where Kandinsky's love of art began. This is one of his first paintings that he did in 1913, and you can see just you can almost imagine the sounds that are going on as he's listening to this music and seeing the bursts of colors and the squiggles and the shapes and the different music notes and things like that that you might be hearing. This is perhaps one of his most famous pictures. It's called Squares with Concentric Circles, and it was also done in 1913. And so you can see that he's not so worried about perfection here, just exploring different colors and patterns and things like that, which makes his art such a good one to study. He didn't decide to become an artist until he was 30 years old, which is really cool. It just goes to show you that you're never too old to start something new. At this age, he went to art school in Germany, and he became inspired by the art that wasn't done in fine detail. He fell in love with the French Impressionist Claude Monet, and he followed a method that allowed him to use his color to express his emotion rather than doing realistic portraits. So instead of drawing a tree, oh, that's a tree, or instead of drawing, a painting of a landscape, he went to this more abstract route, which wasn't always, wasn't really developed at this point in the early 1900s. So he was kind of credited with being one of the first completely abstract art. And he shared that they were often inspired by music. So sometimes he would title them the music that he was listening to at the time. This is another very famous illustration here called Small Worlds V, which V stands for 5. And you'll see he kind of has all these different colors. He's sticking with primary colors, but he's overlapping them to make new colors. Composition 9 was done in 1936. Here he's working with different colors and shades. He's working with still again that abstract, but it's a little bit more refined here, and it's just so beautiful to me, this sharp black that he's got, these checkerboards that he's got like a painting inside of the painting. So what we would normally do is we would actually look at these and study them and zoom in and take time to really look at them and appreciate the art that's there. Most of the students like to point out that there is a rainbow here, but that most of this is so abstract that we can kind of make out some things. We can kind of see that that's a rainbow. Maybe this is a sky. Maybe these are some mountains over here. Maybe this is a road or a river or something. So it's a really fun tool to like have a conversation about his art. And what do you notice about it? How does it make you feel as you're going through this? Again, sticking with those geometric shapes. He's got a kite over here. He's got parallel lines. He's got circles and arches. And this one is a lot more hard lines, which you could use a ruler if you're inspired by this piece. Google actually did one of their art pieces as Google. So they did their name inspired by Kandinsky. So here's the G-O-O-G L, and there's the E at the end there. So very abstract. They were inspired by Kandinsky. In between the years 1922 and 1933, we really noticed that geometric shapes in Kandinsky's art. And this is the painting that we are studying, which is called Composition 8. And you can see that it is just full of geometric shapes. We've got equilateral triangles, we've got circles, we've got all sorts of quadrilaterals in here, we've got parallel lines, we've got intersecting lines where they're crossing, we've got open angles like this one here. That's actually what we call an acute angle. It's a very narrow angle. It's cute and little. And then we have obtuse angles, which are really open wide, kind of like this one over here. You can see it goes from being this, remember we talked about this was a square angle. We can go in and notice the angle's getting smaller on the inside here. That's acute. Or we can go wider and it becomes obtuse. So those are some additional vocabulary words that you can use when you're exploring Kandinsky's art. I wanted to share a couple of more links. Maybe I'll link them with this video, but this was a neat thing that the artist, an additional artist, so not Kandinsky, but what they actually did was they recreated his piece with music. So their interpretation of how he might have visualized it as he was painting it, listening to music. So this is a really cool video, just to give you an idea of what it might be like for Kandinsky as he was listening to the music and becoming inspired by the artwork. So that one, and then this was the other one that I have linked as well, where they do something very similar. Just zoom in and study the art in a different way. cool 3D representation of that. So it's just a fascinating project. This is one of my favorites. We usually spend several days on this. I did want to also point out that it is on the Guggenheim Museum. So they actually have the piece here that you can click on and you can zoom in, and they have just such a high quality image of his piece. And then it will actually talk to you about the piece here. And then, like, this was completed on July 1923. It's an oil painting. It does tell you how large it is, so you could actually measure it out and see how big it is, and it just tells you more about him. And it's just a really neat project that we like to do in class, and unfortunately, since we can't do it, I wanted to send it as an activity today. So if you go into the choice board and you scroll down to our, not our pizzas, if you scroll down to the activity, what it's asking you to do is use colors in his image, which I made black and white, and see if you can find a shape that is not a polygon. Remember, polygon can't have curves in it, so any shape that has a curve, like a circle or an arch, is going to not be a polygon. Can you find a quadrilateral and color it orange? Can you find a quadrilateral that's not a square or a rectangle and color it yellow? You find parallel lines or a semicircle or an open angle, and you're going to color it those corresponding colors. So attached, I just made the image black and white. It is a little bit blurry, but you can still get the same idea from it. And then you just would use that color code to help you find and identify the shapes that are on here. And then as a little bonus, I suggested in the week at a glance to create your own piece inspired by Kandinsky himself. So that's one thing that we like to do at the end, is go through and use rulers to create those straight lines, use shapes to circle and get those nice perfect circles, trace those, and then we go over them with Sharpie, because if you notice in his piece, he's got a lot of solid, really vivid, bright colors, but then he's got a lot of hard blacks in it as well. So we go over it with Sharpie, and then we do a watercolor, or we do crayons or colored pencils or things like that. So there's a lot of fun that you can have with this today, especially with the internet not working very well and the issues that we're having with some of our platforms. So I highly encourage you to do this activity today and explore and review and recap on shapes before we start with fractions tomorrow. So